Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us of the Project Management Masterclass. So today, as we look at the project charter, we'll be looking at the what, the why, and the how. Remember, this isn't, we are not trying to train you to get certified, but we're trying to train you and show you how it's done so that you could get that job, pass that interview, get the job, and keep the job. I always like that phrase because sometimes we scale the interview, but then we get to the job, we can't do the job. And that's the whole idea about this program that we're running. All right, so I'm gonna just jump straight into my presentation. Like I always like to say, everyone is a project manager. You manage projects, whether you're certified or not. You do manage projects, whether it's going to the university, getting an education, and get a degree, or it's a wedding, or you're building a house. It's a project. So in this webinar today, we're going to provide field insights on the how-to of managing projects and bringing out those deliverables. The question is, what is a project charter? I know we hear a lot about charter. Sometimes we hear the UN Charter. What is it about on human rights? We hear about what is the business charter, or what is the club's charter or constitution. You hear all those kind of terms. The truth of the matter on projects, a project charter is a living document because there are some components of it that could change, which is why we use the term living document, and it aligns the entirety of the project, and it helps teams to quickly understand the goals, the tasks, timelines, who the stakeholders are, and how the project is going to be managed. And it also serves as the formal announcement of an approved project and who is going to manage that project. That's what the project charter is. So you can take it to be like your terms of reference for every other thing you're going to do on that project. Every time something is going wrong, is to go back and look at that charter in terms of did we capture all the key components in order for this project to go live. When I say go live, I'm not talking about delivering the project. It's about for managing the project from start to finish. So this outline is a very clear and concise document provided with some high-level information. Okay. Now, the purpose is to formally authorize the project to commence. It creates a common vision. Everybody have access to it. It's not some classified document. It's a document that, hey, can I take a look at it? Anybody on the project team should be able to have access to it to help them understand. Even when we do the kickoff meeting on a project, we always make reference. In fact, the content for your presentation for kickoff comes from this document, because you're not going to hold down the entire business or senior executives going through some long presentation. This document summarizes what the whole project is about, helps everybody to understand it, and it's always at the high level, okay? And then, of course, it helps us to understand what success will look like at the end of the project, because it's captured in that documentation. But more importantly, but it also helps you to gain support for the project within the business, because some of the internal communications that will go out to the various stakeholder groups would come from this document. So this document is really important. And even when you are now looking for additional funding, it's still the same project charter that authorized the project in the first place that you will make reference to. Okay, so it's a point of reference. What are the key sections on a project charter? You have about 10 of them, 10 key ones. The other, elements in it, but these are the key sections. So one, you have the project information. Two, you have the business case or the justification for the project. And then 3, you will look at the project objective and benefits. This lists the goals and that a project will try to achieve. And when you are trying to prepare this document, we normally use what we call the SMART principle. So it should be specific. Whatever objective you're specifying must be specific. It should be measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Otherwise, you will probably just be moving around aimlessly or pursuing different visions as the project commences. This document also helps you to manage scope, because once the goals are defined in very clear terms, it's easy to have conversation with people who are asking for additional value outside of the scope of the project itself. And then we talk about the project organization. What are the various teams that will manage, that will be involved in this project? For example, let's say that you have the project leadership team, or what some people call the project steering committee. Sometimes in some organization, you have the project management office, okay, that is situated as a unit within the business that manages all their projects. And then, of course, you have the project team themselves. You have who the key stakeholders are, and then, of course, number 5, you look at the high-level project scope. Now, this outlines the boundaries of the project at a high level. And it's really important that at this point at the project charter that you agree with your sponsors what is in scope and what is out of scope. Because the problem that we have with scope creep most of the time is that if it's not clearly stated in a project charter in terms of what exactly is covered on this project journey, what usually happens is that as the project commences and as the business analysts begin to analyze and dig in and find out other problems start surfacing, as you're doing your, let's say your assist analysis, for example, as a BA. And then suddenly your stakeholders realize, oh, we can actually, we should also add this. I think this will be a good idea. But the problem is that they do not consider whether we have the budget for it, that the business have budget for it, or the time for it to even deliver it. But all the same, they just want it. So, but we can always refer them back to the project scope. All right. 6, the timeline. What is the time limit we have to deliver this? Remember, at this point on the project charter, these are all estimates. Whatever you have on the project charter, they're high level and they're purely estimates. Number 7, the project budget. At this point, you have created a baseline budget, which is usually the information you will have on this documentation. And then, but as the project, unfolds, that sometimes you do get to a point where you need additional budget because it's just an estimate. Remember that it's an estimate. And then number 8, you have your key assumptions and constraints. Okay, so key assumptions are like, I am saying that these are like all things being equal. We expect situation and grant to be this, that the business will do this, that the consultant will do that. You're just assuming they will do it. They might not do it. So this is why it's an assumption, right? So basically, you highlight how, if these assumptions fall through, how they will impact the business. So at this point, you start looking at number 9, which is your process risk. What are the likely risks that this project might face? Okay, and then of course, finally, what does success look like? What would be the key metrics that will help us assess if the project is successful or not? There's something I just want to mention here. I know I mentioned it when we were having the session with Stuart. There's what we call project output and also project outcome. Project output is more of the deliverable from the project for each phase of the project. Outcome is more from a strategic point of view in terms of why did the business even start this project? What are they hoping? So whatever you're doing in terms of output must be able to deliver the business outcome. All right, I hope we got that. All right, tips for writing a project charter. 3 tips I will give you. There are probably other tips, but these are the key ones. Number 1, for a project charter, it is not don't make it a very elaborate document. Nobody has time to read all those documents. I mean, a lot of times all the documents we provide on projects, only a few people actually look at it. But this project charter is the most important one. So you should make it attractive for them to be able to even take a look at it. All right. So keep it simple and brief. All right. Executives don't have time to read long documents. I'm sure some of us already know that. They do not have time, which when we get into the main project management training, on how we do it, we will talk about how we engage senior executives, because it's really critical for you. All right. And then number 2, be explicit, get to the point. So A, B, C, this is what it is. All right. Then of course you need to build it with your sponsor. In fact, I need to let you know that every organization is different. There are some organizations where already they have a project management office that manage, or what they call program management office, that manages all their projects in terms of frameworks, standard processes, training for project managers, trainings for business analysts. That's what that program or project management office is. Not just project they manage. Okay, they are more like your quality, total quality management unit. So everything about operational excellence sits in the program management office, and that includes project, process improvement, every other thing, even learning and development. Sometimes they are the ones that dig out, like help to find out what training the senior executive, and then they pass that information to learning and development to work with. Oh, sometimes you have learning and development sitting with them within the large program office, but more on that later. But the reason I'm saying is that sometimes you get to the project charter is already there. What they're just waiting for is to appoint the project manager and put his name there and announce it to the whole organization. So be ready for that. It might come to you as a choker. Yes, it can happen, but it depends on the organization. All right. Okay. So what does a project charter look like? 1, it's a deliverable. 2, it's owned by the project manager. Even though the PMO may have designed it, it's your responsibility as a project manager. Where do we get the information from? Sometimes you have the business strategy unit that has already, they look at where the business is going. They look at the strategic initiatives that the business should undertake in order to grow the business, increase market share. And sometimes they come in form of little projects, marketing project, or even system implementation project. It could be process improvement. It could even organizational, it could be anything. You could be called in to manage anything. All right. So it could be coming from that unit, or it could be coming from the program or project management office, that information. So depending on where the organization is at the time you came in and what they have done so far, which is one of the things you need to do as a project manager or even a BA when you get to a site and you're working, you need to find out where the business is, what they have done so far, and then that will give you a clue in terms of, as you identify those key stakeholders, to know who you should be talking to. For project charter specifically, I've mentioned these 5 information sources. Okay, so it could be coming from a business unit responsible for strategy and business development. It could also be coming from the program management office. It could come from the project sponsor, the information you need to create a charter if they have not already created it. Sometimes you get to an environment, they don't even have a template of what it looks like. They are believing in you. You are the Messiah to save them. So you should be able to know how to create it, assuming they don't have it. And the project owner could also be looking up to you, or he could also have the document ready for you. I just had it up for you to update. And then sometimes you have subject matter experts that sit within the business who, oh, he's an advisor. This is our advisory consultant is going to be working with you. Sometimes you have those scenarios. So the person kind of providing you a support on all the key phases of that project. It could sometimes be an internal project manager who understands, who has done this thing several times. So they just want to ensure quality. Sometimes they give them the title quality assurance consultant. Basically they review everything you're doing and give you additional information that is not readily available. How do we get it? This information, the document reviews, they may have documents to you, meetings and discussions. What are the key elements? So you have executive summary, project information. Sometimes some businesses go to very elaborate stages to do a feasibility study because they actually want to identify the numbers in terms of return on investment. This is key. And this is what we call business outcome, not the project output. All right. And then of course you have the project objectives and the benefit, the project organization, project scope, project plan, key milestones and deliverables, the project budget, key assumptions and constraints, and of course the project risk, success criteria, and then appendix that sometimes make reference to other documents that help them to develop this document.